All right. So hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. Welcome to our spring general meeting for the First Gen Students Group. I'm Laura. I am the new chair for 2022. We also have another new face on our leadership team this term. Erin Robinson is our vice chair. Samantha Harto is our blog editor. Kay Lee is our social media coordinator. And Dr. Bernier is our faculty advisor. We are looking to round out our leadership team with a secretary and webmaster. So if anybody's interested in that, go ahead and reach out to one of us, or you can send a statement of interest to our First Gen email. These are all of our social medias. You can follow one or all of them. We'll keep you guys updated on what's coming up for us, more interviews, past interviews, things like that. I'll quickly run through tonight's agenda, and then I will hand it over to Erin for the evening. So our interview today, we're lucky we have the new director of the iSchool joining us this evening. So he will speak a bit, and Erin will facilitate the Q&A, and then we'll have some closing remarks and a quick poll before we close out the evening. So go ahead, Erin.
Okay. I have the privilege this evening to introduce San Jose State University iSchool's new director, Dr. Anthony Chow. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Developmental Psychology from San Francisco State University, a Master of Science in Educational Psychology from Florida State University, and a PhD in Instructional Systems Design, also from Florida State University. Dr. Chow has been a faculty member for 22 years at Florida State University, the University of North Carolina, and now here at San Jose State University. His teaching philosophy is as follows. Human learning is about being exposed to new information, turning it into knowledge, and using it to improve a learner's current condition. It is the privileged role of teachers to guide learners through this process of discovery and in showing them how and why this information is of value to them. Dr. Chow was elected to the California Library Association Board of Directors in November of last year. Dr. Chow is also the project director for Reading Nation Waterfall, an Institute of Museum and Library Services funded project focused on increasing access to literacy and libraries for Native American children across the country. In addition to many leadership roles, he has also published 2 books, as well as being a contributing author to 2 others, and 141 peer review publications. Welcome, Dr. Anthony Chow.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So I want to again say it's an honor to join you. Thank you for inviting me. It's a real privilege to be the new director here at the iSchool. I had the privilege of talking and meeting Michael Lambert yesterday, visiting him in his office. He's the director of the San Francisco Public Library system, and we both talked to each other about our own leadership journey. And one of the things that we both remarked is that one of the unique things about being a leader, especially when you know it's a good fit and are engaged, is that you're truly too tired and too busy to worry about failing, if you will. I guess that would be the best way to put it. So, but we'll have more conversations about that in just a second. But yeah, it's been again a real privilege to be a part of the field. I just read a resolution from the Northern Cheyenne tribe approving a grant project proposal that we're working on that will archive both their language and cultural traditions in virtual reality. In reading the resolution, it just reminded me again of the real privilege that we have to be in this field, to contribute to the benefit of others. And, you know, in particular, that project using state-of-the-art technology to preserve their current traditions for their future generations, really all of our future generations, such a privilege. So anyway, thank you very much for inviting me. And I'm not quite sure, Erin, should we just go through each question? Would that be the?
Yeah, I'll have them pop up too.
Great.
What was your experience through school as a first generation student?
Sure. Well, so I'm not a first generation student in one sense, but in another sense, I am. My parents are immigrants from China, and they came of a generation where at the time, the United States were only allowing students from China or people from China to come to this country unless they were going to college, right? And so they actually met in Texas A&M. Texas A&M. My apologies, parents. A mom and dad, Texas Tech, and got married, and the rest is history as far as my brother and I. On the flip side, my brother and I really are first generation in terms of being both American born and experiencing life and all of our academic levels here in the United States. And so my experience there as kind of a dual bicultural Asian American person growing up in Florida was one of, how should I put it? One of conflicting expectations. So when one is a person of color, usually what you're told, usually what you see. So how many of you remember 16 Candles? Remember 16 Candles, right? Great movie. But the only Asian character in that movie is brutal, right? Brutal. And so I lived a dual life because I was both an athlete and a scholar. And it would be moments like that where everybody was laughing, at the Asian character that really, it impacts your psyche, right? As far as who you actually are. Another thing, I guess, would be being the son of parents that are highly educated, and again, were brought to this country because they were going to college. There is a level of expectation that set the bar high, I guess would be the right way to put it, right? So, I think for all of us, there's a little bit of competition with our parents in some ways, and so their expectations for my brother and I were certainly to study and focus on school. I think one of the reasons why is because when you're an immigrant, you don't have a lot. And so school is a pathway to obviously a more secure life, if you will. So several things. One, I would say in that experience, being first generation, if you will, American born, and first generation for our family in terms of going to school, first generation in terms of dealing with kind of that bicultural experience where the expectations as an Asian American male was pretty low. So the only thing that society tended to give an Asian American male was school. So basically what I learned is that both my brother and I had to kind of create our own reality, the way we wanted to pursue life. If expectations are low by society, then you have to decide, right? You have to decide whether you're going to be allowed to be, allow them to define, and them it'd be bullies or racism or discrimination or whatever it might be, to define how you, are going to be, how you want to be, right? And so when you cast that off, when you cast other people's expectations off, it's really empowering, right? So if you live life where you don't allow other people's expectations to define who you can be, it's very empowering. And I think The other part to that would be, again, with my parents. My dad doesn't speak very good English. They had really no understanding of the American culture. It also, and this is also, being a child of immigrants, is that you kind of educate your parents in a way in terms of all the things that you learn, right? So, and then the last thing I would say is congratulations to all of you, because education, you can't take that away from you. And more importantly, you're going to set that bar higher, right, for all of your future generations. So congratulations for what you're doing. We know it's not easy, and I'm sure that it resonates with you that you can't allow society or expectations of others drive what and who you're going to be. So,
Thank you. The second question I have is, looking back, what challenges did you face as a son of immigrants, and also in your version of a first generation student?
Yeah, I think that both my parents were scientists. So one of the stereotypes again about being Asian American is, and kind of the joke we have with my generation is the Asian parent would look at lawyer or doctor. Those are your two choices, or engineer. We might accept engineer as the third choice. And so you noticed, as you read my background, I chose none of those. I chose psychology, right? And so I think part of the challenges that I've faced, again, were all of these varying expectations from all these people, including my parents and society, on this is what you're supposed to be, right? Another thing was I was an athlete. So actually, I lettered in 5 different sports. I was good at athletics. And another reason why I was good at athletics is because I was angry a lot, being a minority, right? And so sports allowed me to express that anger in a socially appropriate way. But whenever I would be on the athletic field, I think there were only 2 Asians in our entire school, I was the only Asian person on the field. And not nice things were said on the field. But I think, again, what I experienced is that not only would I not accept low expectations, I actually enjoyed exceeding expectations, right? It became quite a joy. So I think those are 2 perfect examples of, so for example, I was a good student already. That was kind of expected. But for me, being an athlete, that was not expected, not accepted. The whole getting picked first or last, right? So I would always get picked last if it was in a group where nobody knew that I actually could play, right? And that could be insulting, right? That could be demeaning. And that also can, if you're not careful, again, define who you think you are, right? By other people not having a good expectations of you. So I think that would be a challenge. I think on the flip side, there's a challenge too of expectations that are too high, right? So, and that puts a lot of pressure and stress, and that actually is something that is very much an issue for families that have high expectations and high educational attainment. That actually is whether it be depression or too much pressure, that is a big issue too. So I think that would be an amalgamation of the different challenges I've faced, and in some ways it's unenviable, Aaron. It's inevitable because I can't really win, right? Because no matter what I do academically, my parents are like, yeah, and then of course, no matter what I did athletically, and it pretty much was, well, you're not really supposed to be in that lane. So, but I guess I'll conclude with, again, it comes back to being empowered to not live by other people's expectations. In fact, I'll go one step further because we're going to talk about leadership. um, true leadership is not trying to please people, right? True leadership is creating situations where we have an entire tribe that's going to partner with the iSchool, right, to preserve their culture and their language. And I want no credit at all. I just want to see it happen, right? So I think, and again, I think being free of other people's expectations and also being free of needing, seeking attention, right? That's the other thing, right? I don't want any attention. I would much rather just hang out with my dogs and my wife and my family, right? So I think, anyway, that's a very circuitous number of answers there around those challenges. But I guess in some, I would say that a lot of the challenges that I faced was, again, expectations that were incongruent to the person that I wanted to be. So.
Thank you. Do you have any advice that will be beneficial for first generation students for the iSchool program and beyond into the field?
Yes, I think that if I had to boil down my life lessons right now, and this would be to anyone, but certainly first generation students as well, is work really hard and be kind to other people. And I've had the privilege of working with some of the top academic officers in the universities that I've worked at. So at UNC Greensboro, it was with the chancellor and the provost, and here at San Jose State, it's a privilege to work with Ruth Huard and Sandy Hirsch, right? And the consistency that you'll find is they work really hard. I mean, exceedingly hard, almost unhealthily hard. But I think what you'll find with those kind of leaders is that we as collectively really enjoy getting things done. We really enjoy helping other people. We really enjoy seeing things be successful. It's addicting in a positive way, right? So I would say for first generation students, do not let other people's expectations drive who you can and will be. I would say definitely be proud of who you are and where you are now, and the fact that this degree is going to open doors for you that will allow you to do a lot of amazing things. And again, when we talk about value added, it could very well be that person that you help one-on-one, right? You'll never see them again, but you will help them, right? That is, I think, one of the best things that we can do is help other people, and actually help other people quietly, without any attention being drawn to it. So I would say, again, my advice to all of you, and really to anyone, would be work really hard, and I mean really hard, and be kind to other people. And both of those are also very difficult to do. But I think sometimes people don't realize that we all want to be successful. And each level of success that you attain, the harder you're going to have to work. So it's there's really no secret to that. And I guess the last thing I would say is that if you don't find that you have the passion to work really hard at what you're doing, you may not be in the right field, right? I think that's probably the other aspect. And then I'd say, the third part to this would be of course, health and wellness. So life has gone really fast for me, and as it does for everyone. And so my youngest now, I have three. My youngest now is 19. So a couple of weeks ago, it was the first time I've never been with her for her birthday, right? In her 19 years. So she was off at college. So it goes fast. So I guess the other recommendation is which may seem counterintuitive to working hard, is to also make sure you take time for yourself and enjoy life while also enjoying what you do, right? So I think the way I would put it, I mean, I don't know what the equation is, but whether it be performing for a concert or preparing for some kind of athletic performance, we have to look at enjoying life in small increments while working hard most of the time. And I think that that's probably the way to look at that. So.
Thank you. And then I have, how did you develop your teaching and leadership skills?
Oh yeah, so I had the privilege of having a mentor my sophomore year in college, and he was very encouraging. He was a former Navy SEAL, and I remember he said what he really liked about my style was that I seemed to care about other people and what they thought, and so that always resonated with me, and so like most things, repetition and experience, you get better. And so in terms of teaching, certainly my education with educational psychology and instructional design taught me the theoretical constructs behind teaching. But I think, again, like life and like being a leader and like being a good employee, a good partner, teaching is very much an interaction between you and each student. So how did I develop my teaching? So instructional design, and this is a term that we're using more at the office, it's called embrace the suckage. And the joke there is that, and again, you think about it, anything you do for the first time, how good are you going to be, right? You're not. You're good. You're not. I mean, there might be there's something called beginner's luck, and beginner's luck has everything to do with you don't know what you're doing, so you don't know enough to be anxious, right? So you don't care, and you end up being pretty good. And then, of course, the problem is after you now start thinking about it, that's when, of course, it's you no longer have beginner's luck, right? And it's harder. So I would say, in terms of your teaching, you have to practice, and the other is that you have to be sensitive to your learners, right? In other words, like looking at you all now, at least I see a couple smiles and head nods, right? So for me, that tells me that hopefully what I'm saying is of interest to you and engaging enough to keep you interested, right? And so when you teach, you're looking for that, right? Is anybody asleep? is anyone looking at you? And I think we've all had instructors that opened the book and started reading, right? And we all kind of look at each other like, what, what in the world? And usually those people are really in a tough spot because they typically are doctoral students that are really good scholars, and the university will give them recruit them and give them a teaching assistant job and give them no preparation at all on how to teach. And then they basically put them in front of a class, right? And so that's kind of panic mode. So teaching, you have to practice. You have to be sensitive to your students. And that includes a lot of social, emotional, reading of nonverbal language. And I believe you have to customize a lot what you do with the students and what they find entertaining. So there's a saying in learning too, that if you're not paying attention, if you're not processing what I'm trying to teach, then what's the point, right? In other words, if cognitively you're not learning, then I'm wasting my time, and I'm wasting your time too, right? And so I'm always after kind of the cognitive processing interaction, and if I see that, if I know that's occurring, then I know there's a chance that some of what we're doing will stick. Leadership. I believe leaders are made and born. I believe leadership is about both taking on responsibilities and seeing if you like being a leader, but I also believe that the best leadership positions are invited. In other words, leaders invite other people to be leaders because they want to be successful. So you know that you are on the right path to being a leader if you're being asked to be a leader, right? And so my path, I've been a reluctant leader most of my career until I became the chair of the faculty senate at UNC Greensboro in the middle of the pandemic. I like research. I like teaching. I like spending time with my family and my dogs. But my provost reached out to me to become the chair of the faculty senate because I had been recently the chair of the School of Education's faculty assembly, also invited by my dean. I say that because in some ways, the more I didn't look for leadership, the more leadership found me because I cared, because I worked hard, because I like taking care of people, like seeing them be successful. And so I've been in, and this job now. So I remember Dr. Main on my first day on the job, she asked, so were you going to apply to this position? And I said, no. I was not looking to leave North Carolina. I was looking for riding off into the sunset after my faculty senate chair position, one of the hardest jobs in my life, especially during the pandemic. And then an email popped up saying, would you be interested in applying for this position, right? And so, and then, as we say, the rest is history. And again, I credit Dr. Main in San Jose State for, I still have to talk to her about how she found me. But the bottom line is they knew what they were looking for, and they felt that my experience was a good fit for what they were looking for. And of course, I agree with that, in particular because of my, I think, passion for technology and library and information science, and of course, my experience. So I think leadership skills, again, are also learned, but also I think invited. So I think it's important, I believe, for all of you and all of us, that leadership and success should not be the goal. That should not be the goal. Those are residuals of doing the right things for the right reasons and also being effective, right? So I think we've all been under leadership that's not good. And oftentimes those leaders are trying to be leaders. They see it as prestige or a higher income. But it doesn't take a lot of research to show those people that aren't very successful in the end and don't last very long, right? So whenever I talk to students about, we call it the Peter principle, which is be careful of getting promoted to your point of incompetence. Take on leadership responsibilities very carefully and make sure, and this is, I guess, something I'll say to all of you, do not pursue leadership for the sake of being a leader or the paycheck. It's not going to work, right? On the flip side, embrace what you're doing, embrace the passion of work and whatever that is, and that there could end up becoming a leadership position, right? And I do believe too that oftentimes we don't realize, the older you get, especially the more you're in a certain area, the more expertise and confidence and competence you will build. That then becomes the natural leadership position, right? In fact, it's like being in a position for 20 years and then bringing in the new person that's almost brand new and making them your manager, right? that would be kind of hard to take, right? And so I think that's also part of all of your leadership journeys, is to be good at what you do, be passionate about what you do. And each year you do that, the more likely you're going to become a leader, right? Not because you want to, but because it makes sense, right? And I think too, last thing I'll say about this is that the other part about being experienced in the area that you're leading is that you know what it takes. You understand the resources, you understand the stress points, and then hardest part about leadership is all the things that got you to that leadership position, you actually have to shove to the side. It's now your job is to take care of other people. It's not to be a good cataloger. It's not to be a good reference librarian. It's not even to be a good LS researcher as much as it is to take care of your people, right? So that's the other part that really makes it hard, because top performers tend to be given leadership positions and they try to then do all the same things that got them to that position, and it never works. So, but that's a story for another time. So.
Thank you very much. I'm going to open the floor now to the attendees to ask questions. If you'd like to raise your hand or submit your question in the chat, whichever you prefer.
Let me just say, this is the other Anthony, that Dr. Chow, those are the questions we've been asking our faculty interviewees. Those are the polite questions. Now we look under the hood.
All right, now this is where we turn recording off, right?
It's not quite. No, this is the good part. In a way, the sense that it's a good part in another way. It gives opportunities for people to look at things that are similar with their backgrounds and different from your backgrounds, and discuss them more openly.
Sure.
So my question I posted here, you lettered 5 times. Do you still have your letterman jacket?
Probably. Honestly, it doesn't fit. When I graduated, I was a swell 170. Now I'm a swell 220 plus. so yeah, I do have it somewhere, Anthony. But it's in the closet somewhere at my parents' house. So.
I think we have a question in the chat from Kay. Did they reach out to you through LinkedIn or through mutual friends or colleagues?
This position?
I'm thinking so.
Yeah. Yeah, just an email. Actually, yeah, just an email. Yeah,
wow.
Best email of my life.
How did they find your email?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. We'll have to ask Dr. Main that question. I think that's a good question, Kay. I think that's actually another part of leadership too, is and I think all of you represent this. So the other part that I didn't mention is being active and getting involved. And I think that your positions, and I found the same thing in my positions, in professional organizations, it's very easy to become a leader, right? Because there's not a lot of people to do all the work, right? And so Kay, I think one of the answers might be because I was on so many listservs, and I have a big mouth, and I'm involved in a lot of things. I think my email is all over the place, or that email was all over the place, right? So I think that's probably the case, and I think probably too. I will get the story at one point. I'm afraid to ask, honestly, and I guess those are some of the things you don't talk about. But yeah, it's a good question. I don't know how they got my email address. But I will say again, building on what Kay said, as you work hard, as you become better known, again, I think as Kay is implying, you get found out because people know who you are, right? So I don't know which committee, Kay, I don't know what grants, I don't know what publication, I don't know how they found me. And again, on the flip side, I wasn't trying to be found, but I guess it could be said, Kay, it's easy to find Dr. Chow. Right, so I'm all over the place, not because I'm looking for accolades, but because I love it. I love. In fact, I not only love it, I feel that if we don't, and so let me skid off the topic real quick. So the other thing that Mike Lambert told me, and again, it's not new, but there's a real war against the MLS degree, and so. I'm up to the challenge. I think you were up to the challenge. You guys are all up to the challenge, but I don't know. I guess I'm a sucker for a good fight. so that would be the other thing as we send you off into the library world. You guys are not only going to do great things, but you are representing your entire profession as county managers and principals and board of supervisors look and see whether they can pay less money to more people so that they don't have to pay for the degree, right? So are we going to fight this together? Heck yeah. Okay, Anthony. Yes. Yeah, I think that's why I believe I can resonate a lot with the FGS experience, because although I'm not FGS, I am in a way, because everything that I experienced, my brother experienced, was kind of new to my parents. Definitely anger, even to this day, Anthony. I mean, part of, there is a double-edged sword to working hard and doing and taking care of other people, or doing right by other people. And what I mean by that is, whether it be your dog or your family or your parents or all the other things that you're not spending your time with, there's always a cost. And I'll tell you guys this point blank, there always will be a cost, right? No matter what you do, no matter how you're doing it, there's a cost on the other end. So how do I handle my own mental health? I would say try to be cup half full, because if you look at always cup half empty, it drains you. And if you know that in many ways there always will be a cup half empty, if you just focus on that, then it's really hard to get out of bed, right? And so, and I always believe I always believe it's cup half full and cup half empty, right? No matter what. My wife is in North Carolina because I moved here because the house isn't ready to sell yet. So I've been away from my wife now for the last couple of months, longer than I've been away from her since we started dating at 16, right? That's a huge sacrifice. I'm sure it'll be fine, but who knows? Maybe I've created an issue in my own marriage because of this job and the work that I do, right? So anyway, my point being is, and then I had my dog pass away at 15 and a half. And when dogs pass away, it's always a sense of guilt, right? In terms of, I could have spent more time with them. I should have spent more time with them, right? So yeah, but I definitely understand, Anthony. And I guess I would say, unfortunately, that really, whether you're FGS or not, that's kind of that comes with the territory, right? Because if you're not FGS, now it's say, and you guys don't do this to your kids, right? Now the bar is set pretty high. So now the message that you tell your kids is, well, unless you get a PhD, I have no words for you, right? In other words, there's gonna be, anyway, there's gonna be a whole set of other problems, right? I guess would be the way to put it. And I don't know how many of you are parents, but the one thing that I certainly have learned as a parent is they're not you, right? And so as much as I want them to be a better version of me, I've learned, again, this is cliche, and you would think of all people I would understand, I would get this. They have to be better versions of, or they have to be the best version of themselves, right? They're not you. And my wife would actually joke about it. And I always joke about how we had 3, right? So after the first one, we're like, we have it all figured out. And then the second one, completely different. Oh, we have it all figured out. The third one, completely different, right? And so, yeah. So
I have a question, Dr. Chow. I'm very intrigued about the Reading Nation Waterfall project. It aligns with your commitment to service as well as first-generation students. How did you become involved in that project?
So I've had the privilege of being the evaluator for the LSTA program for various states. And so that's part of the process of being an LSTA evaluator for a state library is to really look at do an environmental scan of their community. And so because, of course, the state library in its work through libraries is to support, again, the needs of the community, right? And so in Montana, Aaron, I did an environmental scan. And of course, one of the things you're always looking at, student achievement and socioeconomic indicators. And what I discovered is that there was this huge gap because Montana is a very strong reading state, right? So as far as nationally, Montana is pretty high up there, very upper 25th percentile. But then the Native American students, however, were lower. The gap was even more extreme. In other words, right? And so that began my investigation into why, right? So as the state evaluator for the state of Montana, I kind of made it my responsibility to work with the state librarian to understand why, right? Why is there this gap, and how can the state library help, right? How can libraries help address this gap? So, and that kind of began my investigation. And what I discovered is there's always room for all of us to fight for people that nobody's fighting for, right? And so I discovered book deserts. I discovered drugs. I discovered broken families. I discovered poverty. I discovered children growing up in book deserts, right? And book deserts meaning no books at home, outdated collections at school. And it's not, and nobody was fighting for that, right? In other words, I was like, how can this be? How can we have kids growing up in homes that don't have books? And how can it be that they come to school and there's still no books, right? How can we allow children to grow up without books, right? Does that hurt? Isn't that painful, right? And so that's how I got into it, Aaron. And so then I wrote a grant to study this further, right? To MLS. Okay, I want to study this scientifically, and again, it showed book deserts, right? And so parents in poverty, it's it is what it is, right? Books are expensive, right? Books are expensive. We can't just go to Amazon, and we just can't go to Barnes and Noble and just buy all the books we want to buy, right? We go to the library, and so but the thing is that there's also a rule that the less money you make, the harder you have to work, right? And so so families in poverty oftentimes are broken homes, but the other is that the parents don't have time or the money to take them to their children to the library or buy them books, right? So that's how the book desert situation was found. And then Aaron, that's where Reading Nation Waterfall came in and said, okay, we understand these as barriers. Now we're going to bring libraries into the picture like they should have always been. And we are going to partner and bring them together as a reading network to try to also work with Head Start. So my cognitive psychology background, where we need to start before they even get to school, right? And so, yeah.
Thank you.
I had a question. So I think that your experience as like a first gen, but not a first gen, I think it still aligns a lot with, for example, like my experience where my parents didn't go to school because, like you said, your parents, like their experience of how they got into school and how they found their information, like it would have been way different than what you experienced. And how you said, like a lot of times children of immigrants end up teaching their parents things. I assume you weren't able to ask them all the questions that you had, and that's an experience that a lot of first gen students experience as well. Like we didn't grow up talking about it in my house. There's no answers to any questions.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering if there was anything in particular at school that was really good at helping you get information you needed, or if you wish there would have been something specific so that our group can work towards making sure we're offering that for the first gen students at SJSU right now.
Yeah, that's a really great question. So I would start off with racial identity is probably the first thing. So I think being a minority in anything, any way, shape, or form is very isolating, right? And so you're looking for people that look like you. You're looking for some role models, right? It's like everybody's telling you what they think you should be. And so you're looking for examples of what you could be based on, and so I would say that's probably the first thing. You probably know I'm going to say this, but one of the places I would go is the library, because remember back then it was the encyclopedia. It was and the library was an objective place, right? Even our textbooks didn't seem objective. When I would read them, I didn't see my culture there. But at the library, it was just open and objective. And my parents, I remember, I would during the summer, my brother and I would just spend all day at the library, and it was a refuge. So I would say, and libraries are already this way, but actually talking to Michael Lambert, who's also Asian American, we do believe libraries have a strong role to play in healing a lot of the racial tension and also helping people see more of themselves and their history in a healthy way, right? So I think we all agree that kind of textbooks aren't doing the job. Hollywood is certainly not doing the job. And so libraries rock. In fact, and I think libraries, and I'll share this story. So being the chair of the faculty senate, and the fact that George Floyd was from North Carolina, we worked a lot with the Black faculty leadership, and my good friend and former chair of the faculty senate, who was African American. We would kind of joke with each other about how many Black friends. She would ask me, how many Black friends do you have? And I'm like, well, you're Black. And she would be like, how many? And I'd be like, how many Asian friends do you have? I'm like, you're Asian. But the point being is, if you don't have a Black friend or you don't have an Asian friend, how are you supposed to understand those cultures, right? Where do you get that from? And unfortunately, as much as we hate to admit it, we're inundated with stereotypes everywhere, right? Magazines, movies, sports, whatever. And so if you don't have more valid knowledge about these things, even if we hate to admit it, we actually are developing stereotypes because we have no other counter narrative to those images that just inundate us constantly. So I would say, Laura, great question. And I think, again, it's libraries. I think libraries have to play, but I think libraries have to be much more objectively assertive in pushing that out, right? So before I left, one of the conversations I had with the state librarian is that he was going to take the lead in doing that on behalf of the Asian American community, right? So xenophobia, given COVID and because of the tension with China, it's tough being Asian in non-Asian environments, right? You're kind of a sitting duck, if you will. And he really felt that libraries should play a role in educating and really looking at it, right? Is it really appropriate to blame all Asians because it may have come out, COVID may have come out of China, right? Are all Asians Chinese? No, and no, right? But anyway.
Right.
It's a great question. And then the answer is libraries.
Okay. and just having like representation in the libraries, like that's seems to be like the main thing that I'm getting, is that you need to have representation for everybody, because that's how you identify with anything, right?
Yeah, I think so. Even though I will say, Laura, there's a movement which I think is very positive. So ALA has actually talked to us. So we do a lot of the learning modules that the high school does, our faculty, and they actually approached us about really developing, and we put the best person that could do this, Kristen Redmond, whose area is EDI. They basically came to us with an interesting problem. They go, we want you to teach EDI in the environment that we know is actually defining most communities in America, which is all white librarians and all white clientele. And there's nothing wrong with that. It is it's the definition of our country right now. But their point being is that they believe, rightfully so, Laura, that the EDI content has to operate and be very organic and healthy and safe in that environment, right? In other words, all white. And there's, again, nothing wrong with that. It's just fine. But the conversation, the materials, like we were saying, Laura, have to be there in their hands, right? Because if the content's not there and there's nobody, like you said, that looks like that culture there, right, then the content has to be there. And by the way, Laura, the other issue, of course, is that just because I don't represent all Asian Americans, right?
Right.
and a Black person doesn't represent all Black, you know what I mean? And so that's a misnomer too, right? Because in fact, I really do believe, I not only believe, it is true, we are more similar than we are different. And I think we're more similar to other people of other races based on who we are than we are different, right? And you can guarantee Well, listen to this statement. All white people are, right? Well, that's a ridiculous statement. So it's the same thing with all Black people are, all Asian people. It's an inane statement. We're individuals, right? And we're very diverse, right? So
Thank you.
thank you.
I think Dr. Bernier had a question in the chat. It says, how did you make, build, maintain your personal board of directors mentors, like ones that you would check in with and let them know how you're doing?
Yeah, so I would say AB, I actually have not had a lot of mentors. And the reason why is because I'm kind of a unique person. And what I mean by that is growing up in the Deep South, there's not a lot of people that look like me that had that experience. And then on top of that, my wife is Dutch Irish, right? So it's like this cacophony of, and so AB, honestly, I don't have a lot of mentors. And I don't have a lot of mentors because I would try to have mentors, but what I would find is their advice and their experience did not align with my own real worldview, right? And so it wasn't that it's not that I don't want to have mentors, but I've had very few mentors because it goes back to that. It's not that mentors try to do this, but if their worldview doesn't match with yours, then their advice to you actually can be counterproductive, right? It could be, Anthony, you should do this, or Anthony, you should do that. I'm thinking, but, and again, they don't have my context. Yeah.
Mentors don't always tell you what to do. You know, they can be good listeners. They can be good second readers. There may have been people whose scholarship sparked you to continue on and in psychology or teaching.
Yeah.
Those are mentoring behaviors or practices too.
No, you're right. You're right. You're absolutely right. So, but I have to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't really have any mentors that I check in with regularly. Now I do have role models that I look up to, and you know, every now and then I might run into them and we might talk about life. But I actually do not, and I don't know if it's a bad thing or not. But that is, yeah, I have to be candid. I do not have a list of people that I call or talk to about a whole lot. So I think.
Well, Aaron knows this. I mean, I ring this bell all the time that I try to get students to be reaching out to people, half a dozen people perhaps, that care about them, that are interested in learning how they develop, are interested in learning about questions they may have, maybe someone willing to look at a cover letter for a new job, and then keep those people. They can be, you know, someone in your family, a faculty member, a religious faith leader, someone who you met in some other venue. People care about you and want to hear about your development and are willing to listen over time. So I ring that bell all the time.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. I really do think that it's a great way to go. With that being said, Anthony, I guess goes back to what I've been saying. It works. It's great if it works, and it's great for each person, right? In other words, I mean, I don't know whether maybe it's because I'm married to my high school sweetheart, maybe because I've got ADHD. I don't know. but the bottom line is, yeah, I've never really had a lot of mentors. And I honestly think, Anthony, the reason why, for my sake, is my reason is because it's not that I'm unique, but because of my situation, I think it was harder for me to find people that resonated with me, that had the same, they looked like me and had the same experience as me, right? I think if I had more of that, it'd probably be easier for me to find mentors, right? So,
well, it does point out that first generation experiences, no matter how defined, take on so many different kinds of profiles. Some from, as you came from high expectations, some of us come from low expectations, some from none. And the range in there and the range of resources that we have identified and used and developed or forgotten is vast. It covers a lot of ground. Social background covers a lot of ground.
Yeah, no, I agree. So I would definitely echo Anthony about mentors, if it's working for you, if you have the right mentors. And another way to look at mentors too, or maybe less formal mentors, which I think, Anthony, might be because of the rapid speed of information now, is just seeking the right resources when you have a question, right? So Anthony, one of the funny things about raising children, digital natives, is that, and this happens to all of us, is I remember when we would have road trips, my kids would get frustrated with my wife and I because we couldn't answer the question that they asked, and we would start to hem and haw, or even throw a little BS their way, and I forget it, I'm Googling it. All right. And so, and very frequently, my wife and I would be caught with the emperor with no clothes on because we were completely wrong. And so after a while, we just stopped. If we really didn't know, we weren't going to say anything, because they could look it up and say, well, you know, I've got 5 resources to say, Dad, you're completely wrong. So anyway.
I'm going to give one last call for questions, and then we're going to go on to our poll if no one has any further questions. Out of respect for time, I know you are gracious enough to spend this evening with us, Dr. Chow. Thank you.
No problem. I really enjoyed it. And if there are no other questions, I'll just leave this one last piece of advice, which is trust your gut. I think that you know you better than anybody else. And so trust your gut, regardless of what everybody else tells you, trust your gut, right? In other words, what you believe is the right thing to do, because we all mean well. All of us mean well, right? Aaron, I'll give you advice till I can't stop talking, but the bottom line is it's gotta be right for you, right? And you constantly have to, all of us have to be constantly doing trial and error learning, right? In other words, you have to do you, and you have to learn what's best for you. And I think that's what we call the gut, right? Trust your gut. Your gut will lead you more often than not the right way. So anyway, I really appreciate it. Thanks for everybody's time. Again, it's a real privilege to be able to share the School of Hard Knocks with people that are willing to listen. So.
Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, AB. Thanks for arranging this. All right. Take care. Have a good night.
Good night.
And feel free to reach out to me if any questions. I'm more than happy to be a mentor too, by the way, Anthony. So.
Ooh, thank you.
All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys. Take care.
Take care.
All right.
Good
Good
night.
night.
And so here we go. We have our poll, and I will let Samantha go ahead and lead.
All right, so you can just put your answer in the chat. So I'll just read the question. It's what percentage of SJSU's iSchool students identify as first generation students? The choices are A, 10 to 20%, B, 30 to 40%, C, 50 to 60%, or D, 60 to 70%.
There's like trivia.
Not so trivial. Maricela, though, you might be the only one who doesn't know this, because everybody else has
I was
heard
just thinking that.
this stuff
I don't know.
before. You want to take a guess?
I'm guessing.
I'll guess.
Wow. It's okay. Kay even went higher than that. Wow, that's impressive to me. When I ask people casually, it's in the 20, maybe to 30% range. But from our last 4 semesters of polling recent graduates, people who just graduated, between 50 to 60% of our students are from first generation backgrounds, either from a background like Dr. Chow's or someone like, well, closer to mine, with nobody in my family having graduated from high school. Most of the 50 to 60%, none of them have come from families with master's degrees. About half of that, so about 25%, come from families without bachelor's degrees. And that's why this conversation is so important. It involves so many of us, and we haven't really spent too much time in the past probing it and we're just starting to probe it now with our group. So good guess.
Yeah, I'm like, woohoo! I haven't even started. So I applied and I'm starting in the fall.
Great.
Excellent.
Woo. Congrats.
That's awesome.
Are
You can reach right
in,
out then to the
F-
director or to myself or to Laura or Aaron or any of the other members of
Oh,
our
yeah.
leadership team for some discussion if you want. Feel free to do that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm excited. I'm going to stalk everybody on LinkedIn.
Absolutely.
there's a LinkedIn account.
Yeah,
There's
there's-
actually an opportunity right now that they're looking for prospective students. The iSchool is.
Yes.
Dr. Chow and I want to say for Dr. Tucker
Mhm.
are
I got
looking
that
for,
email.
yeah. So if you give us your email and you want to, we'll send you the information about it. And if you want to participate, you can reach out to them.
all right.
Yeah, it's a
easy.
survey and you get a swag bag.
Yeah.
We do love swag at San Jose State. We love it.
All
Oh,
right.
wait,
So I think I
students
will.
for like new campus?
Sorry, what's that, Kate?
Is that only like students who get like swag bags? That's only if they live like close by the campus?
I
They're
don't
looking
think
for
so.
students too.
If
Oh,
you
yeah?
attend a
Oh,
conference
okay.
meeting, if you attend a reception, if you dang near everything.
Yeah.
No, but it's not
Oh,
limited to the.
but I'm not anywhere. I'm like 9 hours away from San Jose City, so
I am
we'll
too.
see. I volunteered.
I did too. Yeah. And I live way up here in Canada. So they better mail that stuff to me. Just kidding. So I'm just going to wrap things up here. Thanks again for joining us, Maricela, and everybody else that might be watching on YouTube. We've got all of our socials up there. Again, please feel free to follow them. We'll let you know when the next meeting is coming up. Feel free to browse any of our past meetings on, you can find all the YouTube links on our First Gen website. We do have a coffee and chat coming up, which is an informal meeting for the First Gen students to get together. We can think of some topics, or we can just chat about anything. That's at on April 21st at 6:30 Standard Time. And we hope to see you guys there. So thanks again for joining us this evening, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks. Oh, I just want to make a last minute plug though, is we still have those positions open for secretary
Yes.
and webmaster. So we would love peer company to join us on our group. Thank you very much.
Good job, you guys. Good job.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.